Manish, there is a comment from the audience that I want to pick up because we have not really talked about that and addressed it. We have spoken about the inclusion, but inclusion is fairly broad when we talk about it. We have differently abled people. We have and also the millennials, because we are all different. So the question I have it, and I'm going to lay it out to the panel. How can an organization become more sensitivity to the differences that exist amongst the workforce? And if we have to include people from all the categories, all the backgrounds that we are talking about, what is it that we should be doing? Is it quota or a reservation, as we call it? Does it work? Or as was tabled earlier, is it the choice of the individual, or is it the culture? Is it the sensitivity? There's so many things. So I would like to hear, maybe Pallavi, you want to go first, and then we'll have the others.
Sure. So that's a very deep question and a very broad question as well. So I would say that, you know, there are different traits of how we can create an inclusive workplace. But then, as I have been always saying, and all of us have been talking about, is that it is a journey, and we all are on the journey. Be it our employees, be it the leaders, be it the customers, be it the society. Everyone is on the journey. And inclusion is a fact; it exists. We may not know whether we are already in the journey or not, but we are all on the journey. What matters is the different stages that we may be in. So, be it for organizations, Indian organizations, or MNCs, or the society. So I really feel that it's inclusion cannot be forced on people. It cannot be imposed, because organization can be at a certain stage of inclusion, but the individuals can be at a different stage of inclusion. So there is a journey and there is a gap that needs to be bridged, and it has to be customized accordingly. So empathy is a major thing. I'll also add on to what Manisha was referring before, that the organization's values which exist, organization's vision which exist, it has to be practiced. I think the whole journey of inclusion actually is a battle that, as an organization or as a practitioner, we all indulge in, is, how to make that value into practice. How do we demonstrate that intentional inclusion as a practice in our workplace so that employee feels included? Because till every employee feels included, it is not achieved, and it is still on. On the diversity aspects which were mentioned, like gender, generations, disability, and age, I would say the diversity of thoughts and diversity of skill is also an area organizations are largely focusing on and have been focusing on. But the conscious effort is now trying to be made there, because again, there is a lot of research which already depicts that there is a very positive productivity which comes out of all this effort of diverse employee workforce and creating an inclusive and equitable work environment. Having said that, I would just like to add another point and then close it. It's now the time, to define how inclusion can be packaged for individuals. And for this, it is very, very important that organizations listen more and more to the people. They have the representation, but not treat them as a diversity statistic. In my work experience so far, I've heard a couple of, the social groups that I am part of. There are a couple of, individuals who are affiliated with certain groups, be it, community of disability or women, or even people who affiliate with a sexual identity. They always say, I don't want to be known for being a diversity stats in the organization. And that's a very, very strong point, that I don't want to be known as Pallavi as a woman here. I want to be known Pallavi for certain skills here, just like any other individual. And similar, that's the aspiration that organizations are looking at. And that is a long journey, but I'm sure it is very, very doable. So yeah, so that's what my view is.
I think I could add to what Pallavi also mentioned. So I think it's very valid for people to ask that, okay, we are talking about diversity, but how are you going to make sure that you're actually implementing it in the organization? And what are the things that you will do as a DNI practitioner to manage that? So just like how Pallavi said, that it's a journey that you have to do, and a few operational things that we have to take care, right? Maybe top three. One is, are your policies flexible enough to change with the changing times? And like we said, it's a journey. Today diversity is something for us, tomorrow it could be something else. It's an ever evolving phenomenon. So do you have policies which can be adapted and changed to suit those needs? Second, just like she said, that are you listening to your people? So do you have those listening tools in place where people can come out and have a redressal? They can reach out to the relevant people. Do you have an internal committee who addresses these concerns? That's extremely important. And I think, yeah, if you have these two in place, then thirdly, which is kind of a hygiene, is are you doing regular sensitization and training sessions for all levels of people? I mean, of course, these interventions would be different for different levels of people. It would be different for the leadership team. It would be different for the senior leadership and the mid manager and the other levels. But are you doing those interventions? So in my opinion, I think these are the three things that a DNI practitioner has to continuously keep thinking about. Whether you have flexible policies in place, are you doing these sensitization and training sessions regularly enough? And thirdly, whether you have a right redressal forum and the listening tool in place. This would help to create that environment of DNI.
Maybe if I could just add on to that, Suresh, just one or two things. Great points from Pallavi and Manisha. I think first, those platforms are actually very, very important. Right? Whether they're in the nature of basic governance systems like your business conduct or your team who looks at disrespectful behaviors in the workplace. So everyone should feel that I can speak up, and those teams should be empowered enough. It can either be a tick box, or you can say that, hey, if my ethics and business conduct leader gives me a call, I know I'm in serious trouble, right? It's just about how seriously are some of these platforms taken. Recently, we launched something called the Next Gen Forum. So what is it? It's like a shadow board, right? Which many organizations have done as a practice as well, where you say, you know what, we believe in generational diversity and inclusion. So these are some three problems our organization's facing. We want to hear your views. So you're being open enough to share transparently and get views, right? So those are some examples also of how we can have the tools that Manisha spoke about. I think the sensitization is very, very important. And what is really important there is the role modeling, right? So we have sensitization programs, we have communication, but you know what? Your leadership teams don't role model inclusive behaviors, don't role model listening behaviors. They don't, the teams which cascade all below, if that is not role model, then it's really just like the role modeling from the top is a very, very important element of this. Otherwise, it is tokenism, right? And maybe one more point I just thought is that I thought I would touch on is I think it's important to have the right action at the back end. But while you encourage the culture, you also need the governance that says, okay, let me just do pay equity review by different racial background, identity, gender. Do we find that there is any organization, you have big populations, statistically there's really no need to have any kind of difference, right? So whether you look at pay equity, you look at career progression equity, it's because then everybody realizes that you're serious about these things. You're not just talking about it.